worked in the wireless industry, a pivotal question I would ask, and would often be asked during a sale, was about a phone's camera. Today we can see from almost every manufacturer that nobody ships a single lens camera anymore, and that the cameras are often the defining physical trait of a phone's rear profile. Nowhere else is this more apparent than the Google Pixel 7a. While all roads lead to it being an average phone, Google wants you to notice, use, and focus on the camera. The last Android phone to see daily usage from me before this one was Google's Pixel 3 XL. Even back then, with its solitary solo shooter, the camera held up well enough to earn the recommendation from many people who were more qualified than me as the best camera experience on Android. Even when it was well past its prime, the camera is what piqued my interest in using it instead of my iPhone.
So why should you consider a Pixel when there are iPhones and other Android phones out there that offer similar experiences, similar features, at a similar price even? Well, it really comes down to two things. The camera experience that is probably the best on any phone that you can get today. And then the second is a little more nuanced. It's actually software features and software updates that you get directly from Google. So, let's talk about the Pixel, because I have one with me right here.
The phone comes in a variety of finishes, and I opted for the very vibrant coral option. It reminds me a lot of the iPhone XR from a few years ago, and that coral backplate is made from plastic to help reduce cost. There is an aluminum frame that makes up the entirety of the phone's perimeter, and at a glance you wouldn't be able to tell that the back is made from plastic, until that is, when you hold it in your hand. It doesn't have that super smooth feeling that glass usually has, but it doesn't detract from the hand feel or the looks of the phone, especially if you don't use a case. On the front is a sheet of Corning Gorilla Glass covering a 20:9 aspect ratio 1080p OLED display that can refresh up to 90 Hz. And underneath that display, the phone is powered by Google's Tensor G2 chip. The phone has a single storage configuration of 128 GB and 8 GB of RAM. On the back of the phone, we have the iconic visor that Google has used to draw attention to its camera. This is a 64 megapixel primary camera combined with a 12 megapixel ultra-wide shooter for a very versatile shooting setup. Photo quality goes toe-to-toe with any phone out there today, and in many cases it looks better than the Galaxy S23 or my iPhone 13 mini. It easily destroys cameras on the Galaxy A series of devices, which this would be competing directly against. This phone is only $500. Having used a Pixel previously, I knew what the lineup was known for, but haven't really appreciated how it has kept up with the competition, especially at this price point. As you can see, this $500 phone's camera is able to keep up easily with the $700 Galaxy S23 and the iPhone 13 mini, which is still sold for $600. Punching above its price is something this camera definitely does and merits all the praise that it has been given. If you're looking for the most complete camera in today's market for the lowest possible price, this Pixel 7a really cannot be beat by anything else other than its more expensive and bigger brothers, the Pixel 7 and 7 Pro. Add on to that features like deleting unwanted subjects, fixing blurry subjects after taking the picture, and the variety of other one-click enhancements make this a camera system that is very hard to beat in the smartphone space, let alone in the $500 price range. Video on Android has always been something of an enigma for me. You will often have phones like Samsung's Galaxy S or Note lineup, which historically have had great cameras. But with it, you also have very mediocre video performance with issues outside of ideal lighting conditions. The Pixel bucks that trend with very clear, very smooth video that matches very well up against the iPhone, which is often considered the best phone for video. Again, going back to the price, you will not find another phone that comes close to this level of quality. Voice calls were clear, the speakers are loud, and the phone's overall size, weight distribution, button placement, and design are all winners with me. Internet speeds on T-Mobile's 5G UC network often netted me speeds of up to 350 to 500 megabit downloads, which is faster than my home internet.
So we've talked about what I like about the phone. Now let's talk about the things that I didn't like.
Let's talk about battery life. Your phone is only as good as its ability to last through the day. On paper, the 90 Hz variable refresh rate OLED display, which is more power efficient than an LCD, a very generous capacity of the battery, and more modest screen resolution of 1080p, these should all add up to an excellent multi-day battery experience. Sadly, that is not the case. If you noticed, I said the screen was OLED and not AMOLED. While the technologies are similar, there are very big performance gaps, chiefly among them is panel brightness. At maximum brightness, the Pixel 7a screen is incredibly dim, even compared to the iPhone 13 mini. Next to the Galaxy S23, you can really see where the additional cost for a better screen comes into play. What this means is that during the daytime, to have a usable phone, I needed to have my display at full brightness. This is easily the part that consumes the most power and has significantly impacted battery life on my phone, meaning I need to charge up the device at about 3 p.m. every day. As a consolation, the phone does support wireless charging, which its predecessor did not, and it has fast wired charging as well. So you at least have multiple convenient ways to top up the battery throughout the day. The fingerprint scanner embedded under the screen is the older and less reliable optical version, which lights up a portion of the display that your finger rests on to get a good reading. That's how it should work in theory anyways. The Pixel 7a had trouble on a good day, usually requiring me to try to scan my thumb at least 2 times, if not more like 3 to 4 times before falling back to the 4-digit PIN. It was also very difficult to enroll my thumbs, as the reader had trouble scanning my fingers properly. Really more of something to be aware of and not really a problem that I had with the phone. This phone has only one storage configuration, and it is 128 gigabytes with no expansion options. With a camera as good as the Pixel's, I would not have had any issue filling it up, and I would expect a lot of people to hit the storage ceiling of this phone when they are nearing the 2 years or so of their installment plans. Lastly, and oddly enough for Google, there were a lot of software bugs with this release. There were quite a few bugs that caused headaches for me. One day, a random notch appeared in the top of my phone, like it had grown a screen cutout like the iPhone 13. Digging through developer options and a reboot fixed that. But random app crashes and the phone freezing or the buttons failing to work at all were relatively common, and I had to reboot the phone at least once a day to prevent these things from happening. Google has since released security patches and fixes for some of these things, but coming from the Pixel line, I was hoping for a more refined experience overall. So after all that negative sounding jumble, do I actually recommend the Pixel 7a? Well, simply put, the Google Pixel 7a is an incredible camera with a phone attached to it for $500. But just remember that it is a $500 phone. Google was very smart in how it cut certain corners, with some issues being more noticeable than others. To a person like me, who looks at different phones all the time, these issues do stand out. But for an average user looking to upgrade to their next phone and want a rock-solid, reliable camera built around a full-featured package, the Pixel 7a cannot be beat at this price point. And even then, this is one of the best camera experiences on Android, period.